we have to admit that dialogue seems to be in grave danger. Civil discourse and effective communication seem lost to another age. Yet, if we take a closer look, we would realize that most problems on the individual, family, as well as societal levels are directly connected to the disappearance of dialogue. Before my journey of introspection, I thought I understood how dialogue works. But I realized that most of my conflicts with others originate largely from the ego, from my own ego, the false conception of my true being. I began to look at the world through this different lens and found a world full of disputes and conflicts. Disputes between friends, among citizens, even within a same family. Conflicts over power, profit, position, and other material interests. These conflicts lead humanity from one struggle to the next. Researchers attribute human conflict to a number of factors. People fight over natural resources, financial gains, religious convictions, power, and political disagreement. Underlying these apparent causes, however, is a deeper one. The ego feeds on these conflicts and continuously seeks nourishment through any and all possible means. Every time we fall into this trap, we are simply replaying the story of the first deadly sin on earth. I refer to the story of the brothers Cain and Abel. Out of jealousy driven by the ego, Cain killed his brother. The story changes its appearance throughout history, but its essence is the same, and the culprit is the ego. This ego wants to convince you, as it did Cain, that you are better than others, that you are always right. And if you fall victim to the deception, the ego prepares you to fight on a moment's notice to prove your point, as if you are fighting for your own essence and survival. But are there physiological reasons that push us to turn a dialogue into a fight? Every time someone enters a conflict, certain centers of the brain are activated. Most importantly, the part called the limbic system. This same center is also responsible for the release of a hormone called dopamine, otherwise known as the happiness hormone, secreted when we feel happy, successful, or victorious. Conflict increases this hormone's secretion. This gives debate an addictive quality. People who constantly argue get a rush of euphoria from the competition and the triumph of winning the argument. Here I remembered Prophet Muhammad's saying, I guarantee a house in heaven for one who gives up arguing even if he or she is in the right. The ego personalizes everything and convinces us that conflict is just a defense mechanism. The ego has a bias of feeding itself rather than seeking the truth. I ask myself, is it possible for people to disagree with one another in a dialogue that does not end in a conflict? In further research, I found that what distinguishes conflict from dialogue is the presence of negative emotions. Eliminating the tendency to fight requires that we heal at the emotional level before we deal on the logical level. The ego transforms dialogue into conflict because it cannot handle the complexities of the world. It sees everything in exclusive categories, good or evil, with me or against me. It divides our reality, but the universe doesn't work this way. In reality, everything is connected and entangled. Nothing exists by itself. The ego is only concerned for its interest and not the interest of others. If we surrender to its wishes, we will be the ones who pay the price. I realized that the mental fallacy of believing that I am always right and others are wrong widens the rift between people and deepens the roots of possible conflict. Even the prophets who held the mantle of divine truth were willing to engage in dialogue with those to whom they preached. So why do we become so upset when people dispute our ideas and assert their own knowledge? When we turn to the Holy Quran, we see it filled with prophetic examples of honorable dialogue, even with God Himself. He gave simple men the opportunity to dialogue with their own Creator. Prophet Abraham said, "My Lord, show me how you give life to the dead." God said, "Do you not believe?" He answered, "I do indeed, but it is only that my heart may be fully assured." And Noah continued to plead to God on behalf of the people who had long rejected him, up until they were doomed to drown. God taught and encouraged His prophets to enter dialogue so that they become models for humanity to follow. A whole chapter in the Quran was dedicated to honor a man in Pharaoh's court who used the power of dialogue to defend Moses and his beliefs. So how can we marginalize the ego and its effects? The most direct and effective method is to starve the ego and allow it to wither. This happens when we refuse to fight back when we are challenged or criticized. So when someone points a finger of disapproval at us, let them carry on and respond not hate with hate, but with love. In the beginning, this is difficult. We may feel the sting of the ego when we don't respond, but with time, as the ego's power weakens, our soul emerges, and we will access our true inner selves, and we will feel inwardly expanded. Here I understood the words of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. Whoever humbles oneself for the sake of God is elevated by him. The Khalifa Umar ibn Abdul Aziz once entered a dimly lit mosque and accidentally stepped on the foot of one of the worshippers. The startled man asked the Khalifa, "Are you an ass?" The Khalifa answered, "No, I am Umar." The Khalifa's companions were taken by his benign answer to this insult, but the Khalifa simply explained. He asked, and I answered. What the ego sees as weakness is in reality strength. Self-restraint holds great power, but this powerful spiritual reality stands in total contradiction with the current cultural values of narcissism and self-promotion. I finally reached the end of my journey with the ego and dialogue, and I asked myself, how could I practice dialogue through appreciating the unity of origin expressed in the verse? He created you from one soul and the diversity of humanity mentioned in the verse, and we made you into tribes and nations so that you may get to know each other. As long as the ego is in control, we will never be able to hold real and meaningful dialogues. Genuine and real conversation is generous and selfless. It only values the interest of others, and it seeks truth even if such truth is against oneself. The ego wants none of this. I went back to reflect on the saying of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. No people go astray after having followed right guidance, except those who indulge in petty disputes.